I want to be the exclamation point. I want to be the person that wakes up and embraces and thrives on life and really lives it to its optimal happiness and an optimal everything. So I'm an exclamation point in my own life and often in other people's lives. Hey there, it's Karla from the Health Navigators, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about how cancer impacted my life, because I know that when we get a cancer diagnosis in the early days, it's terrifying, overwhelming, and even when things aren't going well, if we don't get the results we want for a scan or a test, that can be pretty overwhelming and scary and anxiety provoking as well. Being a bit further out, living with a metastatic cancer diagnosis, I certainly feel like I've learned a lot. I don't know it all, but I've learned a lot. And I can tell you that in my first cancer, it impacted my life like an interruption, like a brief interruption, a 9-month interruption, right? I was 37 years old, had young children, a new career, and cancer came. It seemed to be an early stage breast cancer, but because of my lack of knowledge about cancer and doctors not really being super educative and informative about what you're dealing with, my stage 3B cancer was treated by me as if it were an early stage cancer. So technically, I guess it is, but at a stage 3B with 7 of 21 lymph nodes involved, that meant I needed chemotherapy and radiation. So kind of like the big guns, right? And I'm like, okay, great, let's do it. Let's do what we got to do. Didn't know anything else about natural alternatives, complementary, anything. So did a little acupuncture to support myself through it and got through it relatively easily because I was 37 years old and strong and healthy at the time, or so I thought. So that 9 months of surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, that seemed like just an interruption. And I just wanted to get back to life. I wanted to get back to raising my sons and building my career and living life. And that's exactly what I did and didn't make any changes, unfortunately. So maybe a cautionary tale for those of you that do have an early stage, that maybe you do want to think about making some permanent lifestyle changes, things that will truly support your health for the long term. And I thought eating a healthy diet meant having a lot of salads and eating vegetables. But I was basically still eating the standard American diet with maybe more vegetables than some people, but still processed foods and still meat and still dairy, etc. So when that second cancer came along 11 years later, that was not an interruption. That was a wake-up call. That was a big, okay, I didn't make changes the first time around. I am older and wiser and I know better and I'm going to do better. And so I embraced that one with, I got to change things. And I'm a bit of a let's just do it all sort of person. And so I embarked on doing it all. And I don't advise that necessarily. I mean, unless you're truly a do it all person. But what we all need to remember is that part of healing is doing nothing. It's taking a break. It's just being. So I went a few months of doing it all, changed my diet, changed my lifestyle, cleaned up the environmental things I could change that I had some control over, household products, health and beauty products, what I ate, who I interacted with, what I took in from not only a food perspective, but any other perspective you can think of when it comes to intake. So those things started to help me a lot. But I also realized eventually that I needed to break up with busy. I couldn't maintain that busy schedule, that hamster wheel of life, that go, 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 always be scheduled, always be busy, never stop, and be introspective and just be. And I learned to break up with busy, and I called it leaving white space on my calendar. I left blocks of time where I didn't have anything I had to do, where for a while I had to really resist doing things, right? Because reading a book or, doing a chore or talking to a friend or watching TV or listening to something is doing something. You're taking things in. And what you really need to do, what I really needed to do, was to not take anything in. I needed to just be. I needed to just let my imagination wander. I needed to connect with spirit. I needed to just relax into nothingness and non-doing. And that became something that I eventually got sort of addicted to. So now I spend a lot of time doing nothing. That non-doing time, my favorite time is morning, when I have arranged it so that my schedule allows me that time to do nothing. And I start my work day at 11 or 12, and I do work evenings. Summertime, I might take a few more evenings to do nothing and just sit on the patio and enjoy nature. But it really fills me up every morning when I can sit and do nothing, when I can meditate, when I can just be. Maybe I'll do a little contemplative reading or listening, but then I sit with it. I sit with what I've heard, and I just allow time to pass and allow for myself to relax and just drop into that non-doing time. And so cancer impacted my life in the first way with that interruption, which allowed me to learn in the second go round that I needed to really use it as a wake-up call to see what needed to change in my life. So I needed to make changes around my perspective of achievement. Did I really need to achieve what society thought I needed to achieve? No. Did I have enough gratitude for the things I already had? No. Now I do. What did I need to change, and how could I make those changes, and how could I make them over time and make them permanent lifestyle changes? And I've learned how to do that. I've learned how to take challenges and learn from them, but I've also learned not to strive for the changes and the immediate answer that I want, right? I can strive all I want, but things will come in spirit's time. And I need to be okay with that process and trust that process. And that's been a big lesson for me as well. I've also learned how to embrace these challenges, things that have happened to me, and looking back over life and other challenges and things that happened, while they may not have been traumatic in a big way for me, thankfully, there were small things that I could have approached differently and perceived differently. So I've done a lot of work on my perception and how I perceive. And I've learned to start surrendering. That's a hard one. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on all of these. It's a work in progress for the rest of my life. But I'm getting more comfortable with these things and more capable of doing them, or noticing more quickly that I need to drop into gratitude or drop into surrender, etc. And I'm learning to live with cancer. As a stage 4 metastatic breast cancer thriver, I know that this is something that I'll need to pay attention to for the rest of my life. And I have every plan to have a very long and healthy life. So it is in my best interest to embrace what I'm dealing with, trust the process, surrender to it, and live with it. Make it something that's a cohesive part of my life. I don't focus on it. I wake up grateful for a new day, and I embrace that day. And I recently heard a sermon about exclamation points and being an exclamation point in life. And that's how I have lived my life and how I choose to live my life. I want to be the exclamation point. I want to be the person that wakes up and embraces and thrives on life and really lives it to its optimal happiness and an optimal everything. So I'm an exclamation point in my own life and often in other people's lives. And I hope that you can see that you can get past the really hard parts of a diagnosis, that while it feels like this is it, this is all there is, and it's so hard and it may never end, it does get better and it does change, and you can get better and you can embrace your life. And we are all living and dying in this moment. So embrace your life, live your life fully, and don't focus on the thing that you think might cause your death, because you never know what's going to cause it or when it's going to come. So embrace life, live your life to the fullest, live your one wild life, and try to put that thought of disease and diagnosis somewhat in the background. so that you're looking forward and embracing what's to come for every moment that you have left on this planet. All right. So if you want more good info, you want to keep following Liz and I, just click on the link down below.